You think putting the injector right in the cylinder, direct injection, always makes the most power? Well, maybe think again.
Yeah, it's not quite that simple, is it?
Welcome to Einstein Motors. This is where we dig into the science behind cars, engines, all that good stuff so you don't have to wade through the dense textbooks yourself. Today, we're doing a deep dive. We're looking at direct fuel injection, DFI, versus the more traditional electronic fuel injection, EFI, specifically why one might make more horsepower than the other.
Exactly. We're going beyond just saying DFI is better or EFI is better. We want to look at the why, the physics, the engineering behind it.
And we're basing this chat on some really cool insights from the Bain Racing channel on YouTube. They have a video called DFI versus EFI, the hidden science of fuel atomization and engine efficiency. Lots of great stuff in there.
Yeah, really breaks down some core concepts.
Okay, so let's get right into it. One of the first things they mentioned, something I hadn't really thought much about, was shear time. What exactly is shear time, and why is it important for horsepower?
Right, shear time. It's basically how long the fuel droplets get exposed to the moving air in the intake manifold before they actually hit the cylinder.
Okay, so more time equals what?
Well, the air in the intake isn't just flowing smoothly like water in a pipe. It's actually really chaotic, turbulent. Think swirling eddies and stuff.
Right, turbulent flow.
Yeah, and engineers measure this turbulence using something called the Reynolds number. Even at pretty low engine speeds, the flow is definitely turbulent. So the longer the fuel hangs out in that turbulent air.
The more it gets broken up, like being tossed around in a storm.
Exactly. That turbulence literally shears the fuel apart, breaking bigger droplets into smaller ones. More shear time generally means finer atomization.
Ah, okay. And smaller fuel droplets are better because they mix with the air more easily.
Precisely. You get a much more uniform air-fuel mixture. Think about dissolving sugar-fine powder. Dissolves way faster than a big cube, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
Smaller droplets evaporate quicker, mix better, and ultimately burn more completely and efficiently. That translates directly to, well, potentially more power. The video also touches on squish, that final squeeze in the chamber, which helps too.
Got it. So for EFI, where the injector is typically further back in the intake runner, that extra distance gives it more shear time, which helps break down the fuel.
Generally, yes.
Yeah.
Moving the EFI injector further upstream often leads to better atomization and potentially a bit more horsepower because of that increased shear time.
But here's where it gets kind of interesting based on the video. Direct injection, DFI, sprays right into the cylinder, so it has almost no shear time in the intake air. Yet it's known for really fine atomization. How does it manage that?
Well, DFI plays a completely different game. It relies on brute force. Basically, we're talking fuel pressure.
Okay.
So your typical port injection EFI system might run at, say, 45, maybe 60 PSI. That's around 3 or 4 bar.
Right, pretty standard.
DFI systems, though, they operate at massively higher pressures. We're talking like 1,500 PSI, 2,000 PSI, sometimes even more. That's 100 bar, 150 bar, easily.
Wow, okay. That's a huge difference.
It's enormous.
Yeah.
And that extreme pressure forces the fuel through tiny precision-engineered holes in the injector nozzle. It essentially blasts the fuel into an incredibly fine mist almost instantly.
So it doesn't need the time in the turbulent air because the pressure does the atomizing work itself.
Exactly. The video mentions typical droplet sizes, maybe around 120 microns, solder mean diameter, or SMD, for port injection at 3 bar.
Okay.
For DFI, at those high pressures, you might be looking at something closer to 30 microns. Much, much finer.
30 microns. Wow, that's tiny.
Yeah, and the Tickie's pushing further. They're trying to get it almost to a gaseous state for the absolute best mixing and combustion.
Okay, so we've got EFI using time and turbulence, DFI using shear pressure for atomization. But the video also raised another point about where the EFI injector is usually placed right at the port window, just before the intake valve. Why might that be a problem for making power?
This was a really key insight, I thought. It's about what happens right when that intake valve opens. So the piston moves down, creating a low-pressure area in the cylinder, right? And it's actually atmospheric pressure outside that pushes the air in. People talk about forced induction, but really, all engines rely on this pressure difference.
Right, atmospheric pressure is doing the work. Turbos and superchargers just increase the air density beforehand?
Exactly, the density modifiers. Now, think about that moment the valve opens and air starts rushing in because of that pressure difference. If you spray fuel right there at the port window at that exact moment,
Uh-oh, what happens?
that expanding cloud of fuel, even though it's atomizing momentarily, takes up space and sort of pushes back against the incoming air. It slightly reduces that crucial pressure difference that's trying to fill the cylinder with as much air as possible.
Ah, so it's like trying to cram stuff into a doorway when someone else is already standing there.
Kind of, yeah. It impedes the airflow just a little, right at that critical point. And the video suggests this effect alone could cost you maybe 3 to 5% horsepower compared to DFI, or even an EFI system where the injector is much further back.
3 to 5%, that's actually pretty significant just from injector placement.
It can be, yeah, because getting the maximum amount of air into the cylinder is fundamental to making power. The video even touches on the physics of airflow speed limits in the port related to the speed of sound, friction, heating the air, reducing density. It all ties together.
So moving that EFI injector further upstream doesn't just help with shear time, it also avoids disrupting that critical airflow right at the valve itself.
That seems to be the takeaway, yes.
Yeah.
You minimize the negative impact on the cylinder filling process.
Man, this is fascinating stuff. Way more complex than just spray fuel here. So we've covered shear time, droplet size, the huge impact of pressure in DFI, and this port window airflow issue with traditional EFI placement?
Yeah, those are the big highlights from that Bain Racing analysis.
Okay, so for everyone listening, if you want to really dive even deeper into the nitty-gritty of all this, you absolutely need to check out the Einstein Motors website. That's einsteinmotors.com.au.
We've got the full breakdown there, plus loads of automotive calculators you can play with, really useful tools.
And definitely check out the brand new injector calculator while you're there. It lets you explore some of the stuff we've talked about today.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Helps visualize the numbers.
And of course, follow Einstein Motors on social media. We're always posting more technical breakdowns and insights. Again, the website is einsteinmotors.com.au.
Good stuff.
So yeah, next time you're bench racing about DFI versus EFI, you'll know there's some serious science under the hood influencing those power numbers. It's not just location, location, location.
Definitely not. Pressure, time, flow dynamics. It all matters.
And here's something to chew on. We talked about DFI aiming for an almost gaseous fuel state. With technology constantly marching on, what kind of completely different, maybe even wild methods could engineers come up with next to achieve that perfect fuel-air mix for ultimate efficiency and power?
Ooh, that's a good question. Plasma injection, acoustic atomization, who knows what's next?
Something to keep an eye on for sure. Thanks for tuning into this deep dive, everyone.